What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Time Killers podcast. My name is Neil Rivera, and I am killing time with Mr. Wesley Rivera. Good to have you back, Wes.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I can't sleep, so here I am.
If you listen to the last episode, I actually killed you, so you were actually asleep for a very long time, but we decided to bring you back. We'll have to, I don't know, I'll let you write it while we're recording, and then at the end of the episode, you can give us the lore dump of like how I brought you back, okay?
Oh, it's going to be very Alan Wake-esque.
Love it. Perfect. I am also killing time with Mr. Matthew Field. How's it going, Matt?
Feeling like a premium gamer over here.
Premium gamers playing premium games, and that's exactly what we've been doing. Now that Wesley's back from the dead, he's going to talk to us about his experience playing Metal Gear Solid Delta. I've also dabbled in it a little bit. We all played the original, so we have plenty of expertise and experience to draw on there. Matthew's also been playing Hell Is Us. That's the new survival action adventure game. So yeah, guys. But before we get into the meat of the show, I did want to do a quick plug here. You can now go check us out at timekillerspod.com, and you can find all of our social handles. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, all of our previous episodes are up there in a video format. So if you are a YouTube sicko like me, like to have stuff on in the background, our previous episodes are all available there for your listening pleasure. So go check us out, give us a follow on a social platform that you're not already following us on, and I love you. But jumping right into the meat of the show, guys, let's talk Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. This, of course, is the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which originally released in 2004, directed by the one, the only Hideo Kojima. Not around this time, obviously, that acrimonious split from Konami, but all signals on this one seem to suggest that the team behind this one had his blessing. They consulted with him, and it all seemed very on the up and up as far as this is concerned. So Wesley, I want to start with you because for those of us who don't know, Wesley beat the original Metal Gear Solid 3 like no less than, I don't know, like a dozen times. Wesley, like, can you set the record straight there?
Unfortunately, it was 11 times.
Oh man, that's incredible. But yeah, Wesley, that was like a staple in the rotation in the house. So Wesley has a lot to say about Metal Gear Solid 3 as a game. Have you beaten Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater? If not, how far are you? What have you played? Where are you at with it?
We can't do this by hours because I know where to go. So just for context, I am at the end of the third act, if you will. I have just taken down the Sorrow. I have escaped Groznyj Grad. I am currently meeting with Eva behind the waterfall. We all know what that means, okay?
We all know what that means. We all know what that means.
So, was it a year, 2 years ago when we got this announcement? I was sitting around minding my own business, as always, thinking about how great Snake Eater was for my childhood and who it made me as a person. And then, of course, we see, hey, we're getting Metal Gear Solid, 3 Snake Eater Delta, and I'm like, okay, this is incredible. So just getting back into this, I feel like I don't know the best way to describe it, but it was just instantaneous. I didn't need to know of course it asks you, they have the legacy mode, which was like the original camera setup, and then they have like a new, more modernized version. I opted for the modernized, but just once you're in it, I knew all the steps. I knew what was going to happen. I remember the movesets, jumping, going into the next corridor, of the map, knowing how many enemies. Everything just felt the exact same, just obviously with upgraded, updated graphics. That is both good and somehow, sometimes not so good.
So yeah, no, let's pause real quick because you mentioned the like how familiar it felt, how easy it was for you to jump into. Are you playing the legacy mode, or are you using the new control scheme?
I am using the new control scheme.
Gotcha.
It's just, for me, it's just the only difference really is just that the camera is a lot easier to use. It's less overhead, more, kind of not behind the shoulder, but it is definitely more of a third person in that sense.
Yeah, no, it's so weird that I struggled a lot with this when I first booted it up because something about it felt off with the over the shoulder camera. Like as cool as it was seeing like after the like the initial cutscenes, it's something about it felt off, and I found myself wanting to go back and try like the legacy mode, but it's unplayable. Like it's just, you just can't, like you can't see where dudes are, like, especially the biggest thing. And I think the reason why Metal Gear Solid 3 isn't my favorite in the game is because it doesn't have like a Soliton, the radar. Whereas you have like the different gadgets that use the battery, you have like the sonar that makes the sound, like everything kind of has a drawback. And so that kind of makes that classic, those classic camera angles just not feasible without being super frustrating. So I ultimately did go with the over the shoulder camera, but I do feel like, to speak to your point about like the sort of the bad side of the graphics, like I do feel like some of like Kojima's original vision gets lost, if that makes any sense. Like,
That makes perfect sense.
We know what we know Kojima, right? Like we know he's so particular about like, the way things are framed, and like, knowing about the Metal Gear series and like how much it draws from film. A lot of those camera angles were very purposeful. And so like, I think that's what contributed a lot to like my, like, well, this feels weird, but like, obviously like, it was a limitation of the system, the hardware at the time. So yeah, it was a weird hill to get over. But yeah, ultimately I ended up I've been playing in the new control scheme and enjoying it.
I think so. I mean, real quick. I mean, I remember, and I'd forgotten this until like everything came out about the new control scheme versus the old control scheme. I'd forgotten. I mean, the Metal Gear Solid 3 control scheme was weird back when it launched. Like that was not like, it's not just like, oh, it's dated now. Like, no, it was weird back then, going from another game to it. Like it was always unusual. And now
Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 were like weirdly arcadey.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really were, but I think that was kind of some of the charm behind it back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Metal Gear Solid 4 is what ultimately like kind of brought it to the more modern era. But yeah, I ultimately think them providing that new control scheme is maybe the biggest change that they added into this game, and I think it was definitely necessary to stay relevant in this modern era.
Yeah.
But I mean, besides what were you going to say, Wes?
Well, because I was going to say your whole thing about like how it just doesn't mesh with what Kojima's vision was back then, with the control schemes and everything. It kind of leads into the bigger picture of kind of like a I was wrong moment where, yeah, I've been kind of giving the man a little bit of the business with Death Stranding and Death Stranding 2, but there is something about a Metal Gear Solid game without Hideo Kojima really, really behind the wheel that, like, this is a good game, this Delta, but you can tell that, like, there's just a little bit of panache that it needs. Just,
like, what's an example? Like, what is it? What is an example, like, from the game? Like, which scene or level have you felt that way?
Okay, Groznyj Grad. You get captured. Also, 21-year-old spoiler alert for anyone listening. You get captured. Snake gets his eyes shot, right? So you're in your little holding cell, a la every other Metal Gear Solid game. You get captured, you get thrown into a cell. It's just what happens. So, when you go lay down on the bed, call paramedic to sleep. In the original game, when you do that, you talk with paramedic about, like, Dracula. And apparently you find out that this is Snake's biggest phobia. He has a literal fear of Dracula and vampires. So you save the game, you exit. When you relaunch the game after saving at that point, you will enter a Castlevania-esque minigame where it was basically, from what I understand, this was an Easter egg that was a game that was gonna be made. It had something to do with Castlevania because it was, Konami at the time, but the project got scrapped. But so Hideo Kojima put this little demo inside of this little dream sequence that you have. And so you run around, you kill vampires and stuff, and then eventually you wake up and, it's like it's all a dream, right? So they do the exact same thing here in, this remastered version, and it is a remastered version of the game. And there was just some part of me that was just like, this is so un-Hideo Kojima right now, because, like, he would be like, why are we going to do the exact same thing we did the last time? It's almost like this man is a big movie film buff. The idea of, like, it's just a rerun just would be so unsettling for him.
So you would have wanted them to take, like, and this is speaking as somebody who I would say you hold Metal Gear Solid 3 in, like, a very high regard, right? Like, and as someone who, like, thinks that way about Metal Gear Solid 3, like, you would have wanted the team to take, like, more risks and, like, change some of those things versus, like, just replaying them.
Yeah, because that was Metal Gear Solid 3 was a risk when you think about it. This was, I'm just speaking for myself. If you guys agree, please don't hesitate to chime in. This was my first experience with a survival mechanic in a video game where you had to constantly check your stamina to, like, feed your hunger meter and watch out for, like, injuries and diseases. This was my first time experiencing that. And as you guys know, survival is, like, one of my favorite aspects of a video game. That is why this is absolutely top 5 at least for me as far as games of all time. Am I wrong in that? Like, was this your first time with, like, a survival thing?
It's interesting because, I mean, thinking back on what is memorable about that game to me, it wasn't the survival mechanics. Obviously they're there, but, like, for me, it was really, like, first of all, the origin story, like the Naked Snake origin story was the big like thing in my mind. And then also, like, the quirky sort of boss battles, like the end is, like, to me, like, the most memorable boss, like, probably top 5 most memorable boss battles I've ever.
Did you guys do the settings on your PS2? Did you guys do the time setting on your PS2 back in the day?
About how you can age them out or whatever. Yeah.
I was explaining that to my husband. I was like, okay, listen, like, this boss battle is really hard, but, like, back in the day, you could just, like, get past this by just, like, going on your settings and fast forwarding your clock by, like, 50 or 100 years.
I mean,
and he would just die.
The source code of the game, like, presumably is the same. So, like, you could, in theory, go to your PS5 settings and do the exact same thing as well. But yeah, no, I mean, like, it does feel like, I mean, like, I think there's, a lot of the criticisms that I've sort of read and seen about it are, like, it is very much the, like, Unreal Engine version of Metal Gear Solid 3, which, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, this game looks awesome, and, like, for a game that is, that does take place in the jungle, and, like, like, they really popped off with a lot of these visual effects, and, like, Unreal Engine 5, like, really looks great here. There is a weird dichotomy just between, like, how great the game looks, and like the like, you know, the AI behaving the way it is. Like it is very much still a PS2 game. Like even if you you know, even if you're playing with the updated control scheme. So there are some like jarring sort of moments there where I'm like, damn, like the lighting here looks really great. Like there's reflections, like snakes, you know, like body is sort of, you know, like the weather and like all the effects are sort of, you know, like happening in real time here. But then, like, you know, the guards are acting like goofy, and, you know, like kind of how like the old PS2 Metal Gear guards are. So it's definitely, it's a fun little time capsule to go back to and visit for sure.
It's funny because like with the, you know, obviously these graphics are upgraded, and you know, if you were to play it on PS2, you would be like, what am I looking at compared to this one? But just something about it that, like, when I was a kid playing this game, like the way it looked, how real it looked at the time, it this is how it looked in my mind when I was playing it. That was the reaction my brain had looking at this Unreal Engine version. Like I know there's a difference. It's just my mind, like I can't picture it from like when I was a kid, if that makes sense to you guys. But all in all,
no, I mean it looks great. Like and I mean I feel like they did a good job, like really sort of honoring the original vision. They you know, like I wouldn't say they went as far as you were suggesting that they went in terms of like changing wholesale, like, you know, things that happen, like, you know, like those Easter eggs and things like that. But like they do, like, you know, add on like their own sort of like modern, you know, things like the conversations with paramedic, like that there are some new ones in there, and like they have added some content, and I think a lot of it sort of blends nicely with the original content. So, you know, I do think like overall there's a lot here that, you know, and like I think one thing we haven't touched on either is like there's a lot of quality of life changes here. So like going back to the sort of like survival mechanics and the camo system, like the inventory in this system in this game is just incredible. Just the way that they have mapped the controls here, and like they've made it easy to sort of hot swap the different camos, so you're not like going into the menu a million times to change based on where you're at. I know that that's a feature and like a quality of life update that's gotten a ton of love. So I just wanted to echo that as well.
Sure. I with that also, we can't there are some things in this game, and of course they do talk about it at the beginning when you boot up the game, like, yeah, there are some things that they, you know, quality of life stuff that they've changed, some things that they've sort of left in that, you know, looking back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, we we really did that in this game, mostly stuff involving like Eva.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously it's a game from the mid 2000s, which like anyone who remembers like the Spike TV iteration of the Game Awards will know, like gaming was not it was not a very accepting and like female friendly place, especially in the mid 2000s. Definitely not before then. And yeah, like that doesn't excuse any of it, of course, but like, yeah, like they intentionally left a lot of that stuff in there, and, you know, yeah, for sure a lot of that hasn't aged well. What did you think about the updated song? They brought back Cynthia Harrell and they did a remake. It's been pretty divisive. I've seen people say like they don't like it. I've seen people say they don't mind it. Where do you land?
My roommate, one of my best friends of all time, he's big into music because, you know, he's very audio tuned, and so he was sitting down. He hadn't. I didn't explain any of this to him. He's listening. I boot up the game. I got into the part where I unlocked the song after the credits. You know, you run through the tutorial, but so he hears it for the first time, and he just watching his facial reaction, knowing that this is his first time hearing this song, and then seeing what I assume was my face back when I first heard it. I absolutely love this cover. I mean, this take. Do I love the original? Absolutely. Do I love this one? Absolutely. I think that's kind of that's my take on the game itself is, do I love the original? Absolutely. Do I love this one? Absolutely. I think it was phenomenal. And you said that was actually her doing this remastered version?
Yeah, they brought her back. So, I mean, a lot of the criticism that I sort of read online was that a lot of it was related to just, like, the natural aging of her voice. Like, and it's just kind of like, guys, like, I understand that you're upset about it. Like, and, like, from my, opinion, I do think the original version of the track is better. Like, her it's just a little bit more power behind it. But I think, to your credit, like, this is just to what, to your point, like, this is just a different version. It's a different take. It's a different, like, and yeah,
it's
the fact
24
that they brought her
years.
back, like, it's literally the original voice who did it. So, like, what are you complaining about?
It's like, because you and I, Neil, are fans of the hit Canadian band Rush, and so
Yes.
you and I had listened to Dad's Rush albums from the day, and like, they sound a lot different than when we went to go see them live, because time is linear. It's not cyclical. You're not going to sound younger. Like, why are you upset that the 24 years has passed and her voice has changed? Like, it's going to happen to all of us. I sound different than I did 24 years ago, right, guys?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you were a wee lad back then. You were playing this. I mean, yeah. I was gonna say you were a wee lad playing a video game who probably shouldn't have been playing.
Yeah, I was what? Well, I was 12. I was 12 or 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this controversy, you can even call it that, it just is another example of you can't please everybody. I think that I agree with Wesley. Like, I've heard both versions. I like both versions. The original version is always going to be the canonical one in my head. But I think this is a great, iteration on it. And I think that of all the slight adjustments that they made for this while staying true to the original core, I think re-recording this song was a good touch. In a game where they kept all the same voice acting for the characters, I think having a new recording for this iconic song was a good stamp to put on the game.
And yeah, I mean, we didn't mention, like, the music video, like the credit sequence, like they did a whole brand new credit sequence, like they really did it justice. I feel like
Beautiful, yeah.
Especially with the re-recorded audio. So yeah, absolutely. Wes, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, it's so funny that you mentioned original voice, the voice actors, because we had a fan theory for quite some time, and then right before the release, it is officially confirmed that Eva was portrayed, and I cannot remember her name for the life of me. But
Jodie Benson.
Yeah, Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, trust me, we got Little Mermaid on repeat, so I know who voices
and
Ariel.
So, like, and she was talking about, like, at the time, like, she did the role, but her publicist was like, obviously this is not a good image for a Disney princess, so do it, but, like, change the name. I think it was Konami that was like, we can change your name to, and, like, she said it was something about, like, one of her, like, her first dog. The name was like, for her first dog.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's and she takes her Disney princess responsibilities very, very seriously. So
Absolutely.
I can imagine that being a concern while we're doing this. But yeah, it's such a cool piece of video game history, man. Before we move on to Hell Is Us, with this coming out, like, I haven't seen sales numbers, but obviously critical success here. Like, it's got a Metacritic or an Open Critic in the 80s. So it definitely seems like this is going to be a well-received remake. Do we see this team taking on more, just doing straightforward reboots of the other Metal Gear series? Like, where do we see them going from here?
I would love to see a fully fleshed out remaster of Metal Gear Solid 1. I know we did get the Twin Snakes thing on the GameCube at the time, but I don't know if any of you had played it. I never did. I don't know how faithful it was to the original, or
it's very divisive. But the people who love it. But what is that? I mean, I guess follow-up question for me, that is what do you want? That, because the thing that I keep, because obviously that's the top of my list, right? Like Metal Gear Solid 1, let's do a remake of it. In your head, how do you get around the limitations of the original game, right? We're talking about how you had to make these sort of tactical game design decisions to make the game playable in 2025. The big thing with Metal Gear Solid 1 is that it's sort of empty. It's sort of barren. There's not a lot of guards. There's not a lot of, the stealth is very simple. So, in your mind, how do they go about doing a remaster, or do they try and play it a little bit closer by ear, or closer to the original?
And Matthew, I would love to hear your take on this as well, but my answer is an impossible answer. You have to bring Hideo Kojima back. There's no one who could do it besides him, and it's a reality we're never going to see. But to do it 100% faithfully, to everything that he had to toss, what got thrown on the cutting floor, to think about he's got something that can really handle his original vision. That's who you bring on. But I don't see a reality where that would happen. But
yeah, unfortunately, I think that's just not the way the cookie has crumbled here for Konami and Kojima. I mean, so I've never played the original Metal Gear Solid. So I can't speak to the specifics of what I think should be done here. I think they threaded the needle very well with Delta in terms of what I was saying earlier about, changing just the slightest things to modernize it while really keeping everything core to that original experience. I think, Neil, you're right in that they're going to have it's going to be much harder to do for that first game, because it is old in ways that even Metal Gear Solid 3 is not. If I had to guess, I do think this is what they do next. I do think they do a similar treatment for Metal Gear Solid 1. I don't think we see it within the next 5 or 6 years, but I think that's what they'll work on, and I think they're going to struggle with it, but I do ultimately think that they will modernize it. They will err on the side of modernizing it while keeping the spirit of the original, but without the actual, some of the mechanical elements that just wouldn't play well with a modern audience today. Because I think, one thing that is a big question here is that, yes, they want to preserve these original 4, games or whatever that aren't, readily playable for modern audiences. But are you bringing in new players to the franchise, or are you just catering to the existing fan base, right? Are you just trying to milk more sales out of people who are already a fan, or do you want to bring somebody new in? And I think if you the answer is that they want to do both, right? But if to have any chance of bringing new fans in, you have to make it accessible and modern for people who have no familiarity with the original. So I do think they'll do a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1. I think they'll have a hard time with it, but I'm going to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the blueprint for them to follow is the Final Fantasy VII remakes. And, you don't need to obviously make it into a trilogy and, all of that. But I think you need to go into it with the intent of, we are going to fundamentally change the gameplay here. Because, there are rooms where it is just, two solitary guards. You know, like think, you know, like, I mean, like the big jump there was that like, oh, it's Metal Gear, but in 3D. So, I mean, like, imagine like, you know, like the old pixelated Metal Gear where, you know, you're going room to room and there's just two dudes in a room, and like, you know, there's no challenge there. So you're going to have to go into it. Like, I think a good starting point for them with it would be to try and achieve something akin to like what a Splinter Cell does. You know, maybe like, you know, you're shooting out cameras, you know, like I know with the original game, like you always have the big thing was that you always had the radar on, and like they always played with like interference, and you know, you could like interfere with the cameras and stuff. So I think, you know, there's enough there that I think you could go into it like saying like, okay, we're going to make this like a modern stealth game. Because really what you want to do is just tell that story. Like Metal Gear Solid 1, I think, is still my favorite in the franchise just because it's got the most compelling and like tight-knit story. I guess that's hard to say because Metal Gear Solid 3's I would scratch that. I think it's got the best cast of characters and the best setting overall, whereas Metal Gear Solid 3 I would say has the best and most well-written story. All that to say, I'm excited for Metal Gear Solid, the idea of a Metal Gear Solid remake, and I will, like you, Matthew, be playing it day one. And that is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, everybody. It is out everywhere. It's on PlayStation, it's on Xbox, and it is on PC. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Matthew's going to tell us all about Hell Is Us, the new action survival exploration game that just came out. And yeah, look forward to talking about that. And we are back, and we are ready to talk about Hell Is Us. This is developed by Rogue Factor and published by Nacon. Matthew, sorry to put you on the spot here, but do we know if this is Rogue Factor's first game?
It is not their first game. But this is their first game like this. They did Mordheim, City of the Damned, and then a Necromunda Underhive Wars game. So
these games look vaguely familiar, but yeah, definitely these look like more like strategy sort of, like, yeah, RPG.
Yeah, like Games Workshop licensed games. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, so this is Hell Is Us. This is, you know, like it's an original universe here. And Matthew, I'll let you sort of like set the scene here in terms of like what the game setting is. But like just from my perspective, like this is a game that I've heard a lot about. This is sort of, you know, like it's one of the ones that I think a lot of people who follow the games industry have called out as like a potentially, you know, like exciting release. I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt about it, but didn't know a lot about this game. So, you know, I watched some gameplay coming into this, and I've got a ton of questions for you, Matthew. So I will just let you take it from here. What is Hell Is Us in a nutshell?
Yeah, I think so. A couple things here. One is that this game has been talked about and been like out in the public eye for a long time. It was originally announced in 2022 and set to be released in 2023, and then got pushed back. Like had a long period where it went dark, and then finally like came back last year, and then went through the normal marketing process to release this year. It's also like it has a very interesting look in trailers, but this game, I think it doesn't trailer very well. It's really hard. One of the things that made it stand out in my mind, you know, in the run up to release was just like how I couldn't grasp, even reading a description of like, oh, it's a third-person action adventure game. Like the aesthetic mixed with what they showed of the gameplay didn't really make it clear what the hook here was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The art style here seems like really, like unique, and like the setting. So can you kind of speak to the setting, both, in terms of time and location?
Yeah. So the from a setting perspective, this takes place in a fictional, like Central to Eastern European country called Hadia in the year 1993. 1993 is a strange choice. It puts it at a very particular point in time when there weren't like tons of cell phones everywhere, but yet you still have some like high tech military equipment that like I don't really think. I mean, it certainly would not have been available anywhere like in the known world in 1993. So there's a bit of like a Wakanda aspect to this. Like they've established this country with like a huge history, its own like religions and political factions and everything but has kind of been intentionally cut off from the outside world. Like they don't really like want foreigners coming there or people in there leaving. Almost maybe North Korea is a better example.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Wakanda example seems pretty spot on, because like a lot of, like, I was watching the IGN video review, and one of the comments was calling out that in their video review they mentioned that the setting is like futuristic, which I kind of always assumed it was based on just kind of what limited marketing that I had seen. So it's interesting. Like I was actually interested to learn that the setting was 1993, and there is this sort of like, so I thought it was kind of like a retro futurist thing, kind of like what Chronos is doing. So it's interesting to see the setting, and so I think that's a kind of a good segue into sort of like what the game itself is, because this game is very exploration heavy, like intentionally, and some would say punishingly so. So Matthew, what can you tell us about like the like exploration and like sort of the more open world elements behind it?
Yeah, so the big thing that they make a very big like splash out of, like even right when you're booting the game up, it says like this game will never tell you where to go or what to do. What that basically ends up sort of feeling like is a sort of Dark Souls. I hate to invoke Dark Souls here, but it kind of is the best example, and where like you'll find NPCs that tell you to do things, and you can, like, if you just ignore them and you're not listening to them, you will never, like, there's not going to be a quest log that tells you what to do. Sometimes you'll get like a little message like mystery started or whatever, but if you go into your menu and you look at that mystery, there's no description other than a title for it. So it's not like holding your hand. It does, the only aspect that it does give you a little bit of direction on is the main story stuff, where it will give you like kind of like a crime scene web type thing, where it will recount facts that you have learned from various people and items about your objective. But again, it's not telling you where to go next, which, in sort of the mid game, when you have multiple objectives, if you're bouncing around between one objective to another and you kind of, lose the thread of what your next action was, it can be legitimately difficult to kind of backtrack and realize like, okay, what was I doing here? What do I know? Where do I have to go next? Which is all entirely intentional, and I think I like that aspect of it. I will say I found its lack of hand holding in the objective department to be a much bigger positive than a negative.
Yeah, so I mean, get into that a little bit more. Like, where do you sit with this game? Like, obviously the exploration seems to be a big plus for you, but like, what hit, what didn't for you?
Yeah, and I think one aspect of the game we haven't talked about here is the combat.
I was going to ask about that.
I actually think so. Another way to describe this game is, which makes it very hard to think about this way, given that you're confronted with the Eastern European visuals and like the sort of weird alien architecture pretty much right from the go. But what if you strip away the aesthetics? Like if you just totally ignore the art style, what you have here is basically a fantasy action adventure game. Like I'm gonna list some things out here that are in this game, and if you just ignore this, tell me what kind of game you think you're playing here. You have melee combat, weapons with customizable like runes that you can insert in them to get different abilities. You have a country that has warring factions, fictional religions, ancient orders, kings and queens, and armor made from enemy parts. I mean, you're basically describing things that are commonly associated with like fantasy action games, yet this is all packaged in a, real world, pseudo real world country in basically modern times. Yeah.
And from what I've seen, like the gameplay, like going back to the combat, like it does seem like it plays like one. Like, you mentioned Dark Souls, like definitely like it's got that sort of Souls-y kind of camera angle to it. But even like the speed and the sort of like, it almost reminded me of the modern Assassin's Creed games, but maybe it like, can you speak to like the combat? Like, does it handle well? Like, is there any, you sort of mentioned like the runes and sort of the more RPG elements, but like, does the combat itself feel good? Or is the draw more of the exploration?
So yeah, I'll talk about the combat here. I think the combat, of all the major gameplay like activities that you're doing in this game, combat feels it's the weakest, and it's not because of the combat feels bad. It's that there's a real problem with the enemy variety. There's not that many enemy types, and you see the same types of enemies pretty much the entire game, with some slight variations based on like the different areas you go to are tiered at different difficulties, 1, 2, or 3 being the strongest. And really the only variation on it is like there's this one enemy type, one associated with each of the different emotions, which I'll get into in a minute. And basically each difficulty tier has like a slightly like a different move set. But other than that, these enemies are the same all throughout the game. And you kind of do a lot of combat. I really think that, I don't know why this game went dark for a few years, to what they were reworking or what kind of problems they hit during development. But given the way the combat came out, I have to think that it had something to do with that. And I really think because of how strong the puzzle solving and like the exploration is, they really could have gone for less combat here. To not force it, and I think it would have been just as strong, if not stronger, for it.
Maybe they were trying to like beat the walking simulator sims, because it definitely seems like there was a lot more emphasis put into like the setting, the world, and I think we can get to the story here in a second, but like the it definitely seemed like it's a game that wanted you to sort of like be immersed and like fall in love with the setting. And combat, the combat definitely feels secondary from what I've seen.
Yeah, and because here's the thing, so one of the key gameplay mechanics here, there's I've seen this described some places as a Souls-like. It is definitely not a Souls-like. If you were calling this game a Souls-like, we need to have a conversation, because this is not a Souls game. There's no bonfire system or anything like that resets the enemy spawns. The only time that enemies will respawn is if you leave the zone and go somewhere else. Like you take your vehicle and go to another part of the country and then come back. But you can actually there's a mechanic that is called time loop. I won't go into all that, but basically if you kill all of these specific enemies throughout a certain zone and then go to the time loop and close it with a specific item, enemies will no longer respawn in that zone. So if you
Oh,
go,
wow.
if you go and like, you can theoretically get to a point in this game where you've closed all the time loops and you've killed all those enemies, and there's no enemies left in the world. Like you can clear enemies out of this game completely and permanently.
That's actually really cool, like as an open world game mechanic.
I mean, I thought it was very cool. I mean, especially like, again, I'm not like, the combat is fine. I was never angry at the combat. I think there's maybe like one difficulty spike that I hit, that maybe was because I was doing some things in a different order than it kind of assumed you would be, again, in that non-linear, like middle section of the game. But it's got adjustable difficulty. I just turned down the amount of damage that enemies were doing to me a little bit, and it was fine. So I don't want to knock the combat too much, but the fact that they let you do that it gets to that point, it does again show where, the focus of this game is and what they were most interested in depicting.
So yeah, someone who is, I'm going to say that I'm intrigued in the setting, and I guess if you could give me like a quick like bullet point review, like what did you think of the story ultimately?
I think the story, I liked it overall. I think it was good. It definitely kept me interested all the way to the end. I have some light problems with the way that it ended, but this is a game where this isn't a game where a lot of stuff, like a lot of plot beats happen. Like there's several plot beats that happen towards the beginning of the game, and then for maybe like the second half, I would say, there's not a whole lot of plot beats happening. Like it's established the state of things that you're in and what you're trying to do, and then you basically go and you do that, and so I feel like maybe it could have used a little bit of extra meat or some kind of twist that happens in the second half, but again, I feel like the story is here to get you into the world, to get you interested in the world, but what it really relies on is the world itself, the history of the world that you're digging up, the factions, and the historical figures that you're investigating over the course of the runtime.
So yeah, that's a good segue into my last question, which is, I mean, like as someone who, like me, like I sort of have come to rely on, quest logs and map markers and all the sort of game design UI elements that people tend to complain about in open world games. What would your advice be to me if I were to give this game a try? Do you think something like this would hit with me? Like, how do I need to approach it in order to sort of like get the most out of it?
So I think you can, this is not like a blueprint scenario where you need to have like a pen and paper at hand at all times. I think there are a couple situations in which I wish that I had taken a couple of notes, but they were all for optional things. The puzzles are also like, the puzzles are good, but they're also like, they're sort of like, oh, you see something, you're like, all right, this is probably going to be for a puzzle. I know that I need to make a mental note of what this symbol is and what this text says and stuff like that. So it's not trying to punish you or like really make you, it wants you to ultimately solve it. Like, but the puzzles, I think what the real strength is the way the puzzles are integrated with the lore of the world. Like some of the best puzzles I think are like where you're finding backstory about a particular characters, and you're reading into it, and then there's like, say a door or a statue or something where it makes you kind of like, or a series of statues where it kind of makes you reenact these scenes and the sequence of events that have taken place throughout the history that you've read about.
That's cool.
And there's different variations on that where it relates to like years and different factions and people, individuals, kings, queens. Like there's some good lore to chew on here. And
Cool.
I think the real question is going to be whether the lore and backstory hits for you or not. I think that's ultimately the make or break for whether this game, whether you'll see it through or not. And that's something that's hard to hard to gauge that ahead of time.
Well, cool. If you had to, not to put you on the spot, but if you had to on a 10-point scale, since you've played it and completed it, if you had to give it a score, what would you give it? No pressure. You can change. This isn't like written in blood.
I mean, my gut tells me probably like an 8.
Yeah.
I think the combat holds it back. I think if the combat was a little bit more dynamic, or if there was just less of it to make the enemy repetitiveness like less of a glaring problem, that would have gone a long way. And like I said, I think if maybe there was a little bit more of a narrative payoff towards the end, I think that would have gone a long way. Like it yeah, I don't want to say too much, but because there's just not a lot there, and like it would be obvious to spoil, but I wish there was more to the ending. I wanted more from the story at the end. So those are the main things for me. But the rest of it, the world is beautiful. The locations you go to are diverse and really interesting. The exploration is good. Like all the other stuff I thought was really strong and was better than I expected it to be.
Well, cool. That is Hell Is Us. It is certainly on my short list for games that I want to at least make an attempt at playing for Game of the Year consideration, top 10 consideration. It's available now on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox consoles. If that kind of world and vibe and, those types of like exploration mechanics, like all of that speaks to you, give it a try. But that's going to do it for us today. We want to thank y'all for joining us. Don't forget to give us a follow, subscribe to us on your podcast service of choice. Give us 5 stars, leave us a review, let us know how much you love us. Don't forget that you can go to timekillerspod.com. You can find us all of the different social platforms that we're on: YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky. You can submit your questions for the show. So if there's anything that we talked about that you want to add to the conversation, please do, and we will start reading those. With that being said, guys, it has been a wonderful talking with you guys and hanging with you. We will catch y'all on the next one.